How do, and welcome back to Vlad Tepes, where in this episode we're going to be looking at the Tongde Centurion.
Oh! Nice one, Centurion. Like it. Shut up!
So this is what some of it looks like, because I've taken most of it out, but you'll see that I've added two 37 turn crawler motors, 380 sized.
I admire its purity.
They fit in there just about. The ESC is a Tongde CX, but I've been told by Mr. Tankalot that it's probably a hang-along 7.1, just under license. Now, it was stuck in this position here, and it had a bar going across it. They really didn't want it to move, and I took the bar off, and I thought, oh, there must be sticky pads under it. So I've been prying away at it, and then they've actually glued it. So I was really lucky not to get the screwdriver stuck in any of those components and damage the ESC. But I've done that because I want the ability to move it around to any better locations, especially if I'm going to increase the battery size.
Young chickens may be soft and tender, but the older birds have more on them.
True. And take a lot more stuffing.
I may as well just show you the components. I was going to video it all as I took it apart, but I got carried away, and then there was an issue with the gearboxes. I'll talk about in a minute. So this is the speaker. You could replace it for a bigger one if you wished. It's an 1800 milliamp battery that's stuck in here, and the balance lead goes up to the switch and the charging port on the hull, and this just connects in with a terrible Tamiya connector into the ESC. So it's quite easy to change the capacity, which I might. I don't think I need it to be like 5,000 or anything like that, but I wouldn't mind to make it a little bit bigger than 1800, especially if I'm going to be adding weight to it. So now everything's out, I've got the options to move things around. The gearboxes screw in 3 in the side here, and when I put these motors in, the gearbox was, both of them were really noisy, like grinding, horrible noise. And so I took them all out again and kept them connected while I had the controller on, and I was revving them, and I kept moving the motors around, wiggling it a little bit, because this plastic flexes when it's not in here. And what I found was, if I push the motor away from where it's in contact with the gear, the first gear it's in contact with, the noise went down. So what I've done is I've put cardboard gasket in this location here and this location here, so it's pushing away a little bit from the tension in the gearbox, and it's quieting down a lot. I greased them all up, put them all back together, so those should be fine. I think the gearing is a lot lower now, so I should have a lot more control at slow speeds, which is what I'm after. So I think that's quite a good mod. If you look at the suspension, now that we've taken off the side skirts, it's fairly accurate. They seem quite stiff, especially the one in the middle. And one way of getting it to potentially move better over undulating terrain would be to put softer springs in, but you know, I'd have to take all these apart, and it's a lot of hassle, and I don't know if I'm going to need this once the weight's been added anyway, so I'm going to leave it. These caps have to be glued on, which is a bit weird, because once you glue them on, you can't access the screws. So what I did is I took every screw out before I glued these on, and I put some thread lock on them, put them in nice and tight, put the caps on. There's supposed to be caps for this end here and caps for the rear drive sprocket, but I don't think I'll put those on because, well, I may do once I know everything's running properly and I'm happy with it. I may glue those on. This is the turret. it's, you know, your typical hang along thing. So that's quite, you know, nothing to see here. I have got to think about, do I want to put a recoil in it? I don't really know, to be fair. I'm not going to rush out and get a recoil unit for it, unless it's feasibly priced. Because at the end of the day, for how many times you fire the things, you know, I don't know if it's worth it. So this is going to be, you know, here's the motors, by the way. So you can see they were just standard 380. These shafts were slightly longer, so the pinion is sticking out a bit more on these shafts, are stubbier, but I've super glued them on, so basically they ain't coming off. So luckily it worked. But yeah, these are just your cheap and cheerful motors. So obviously putting crawler motors in with a higher turn gears it down a lot, gives it more torque at lower speeds. So this is going to be a Vietnam era Centurion, I decided, because I'd already bought this long range fuel tank from eBay, which is a 3D print. This goes on the back because these things guzzle fuel in real life, and the details go on the back here, and there's a little communications device I think it's a telephone, field communications that go on the side. I'm going to cut off this rear fender, and let's get the hole. So I'm going to cut off the whole side skirt so we get that nice view of the bogies. I'm going to take these off, these details. I put them on just so I could take it there and whiz it round, knowing full well that I was going to take them off. These tow hooks are going to come down to the bottom, and all this will have a armoured plate added to it because they up armoured the front. These are going to come right back, potentially to about here, so you'll see all the nice juicy tracks on the front. It looks quite beefy, and then there'll be a few other more subtle mods. I'm not going to go too overboard on it, and then I'm just going to see how we go from there. If you look at the smoker, I was right, it's exactly the same as the version 7 hang-alongs. So one pipe is longer than the other one, which is probably why we're getting less smoke, because of the location. It's closer to where the smoke is being produced. So I've got to have a look at that and try and even that out. But the main thing I'm going to do with the smoker is I'm going to drill out all this end here. I'm just going to check what it's like in real life, but I'm assuming it can't have all this thing over the end here. There's only a tiny little hole, and what it does is, because it's pressurizing it, it pushes it out in a long jet if there's no air movement. It just doesn't look right. So I'm thinking if I take that out, hollow it out, at least when the smoke gets into here, it's going to dissipate a bit more as it comes out the ends, and hopefully look better. These have all got to be, you know, weathered up anyway. And the tools all got to be potentially painted up, but you know, they would have been camouflaged anyway, potentially painted over. The turret ring is exactly the same as a hang-long. It's got the silly block in there to stop it from rotating too far. So I'm just going to do what I did on the other ones, rather than buy expensive rotation kits. I'm going to file those out, and it will do 360 rotation. You've just got to be careful how many times you turn it. Keep a track of it when you're doing it, because obviously it will wind it up, the wire, pull on it too tight. Make sure you wind it back after. That's the main thing. Fairly simple, to be fair.
It's tricky. It's tricky.
Part of the 3D package that I got was different fume extractors. I think this is a fume extractor. I'm not sure what this does actually on the barrel. It goes in the middle. This is the one for the Australian one.
Good.
Should have just got my tripod. But anyhow, this is what it's like normally with a with like a piece on the end. I don't like it at all. The aesthetics of it are terrible. So this is going to have a little piece that makes it stick out a bit, but nothing on the end, no flange. And this this piece here goes down, pushes down, and that will be painted up and matched in.
I'd buy that for $1.
This will have a canvas covering, either made out of epoxy clay or something like that. Probably will be epoxy, I don't know yet, to get the shape of it, because it's like a zip on cover that they had over the top of the mantlet. In Vietnam, sometimes you see them with the smoke launchers, and sometimes they take them off because they're catching on trees and blah blah blah. I'm going to keep them on. And the rear, sometimes it has a basket, and sometimes they took the basket off because of the same issues. I haven't got a basket, and I don't really fancy making one, so it's not got a basket. I'm not that bothered, to be fair. And for now, I think that's it. Like I say, so most of the time you see these pieces are cut off anyway. These look a bit dodgy, so these are off. But I think on the ones I've seen for the Vietnam, Australian, Centurion, they come back to about here. So this will be cut here. All this will be cut off here, and you'll see all the side goodness. Hopefully, whether the track's up, and then we'll see what it looks like and sounds like from there. So there's a searchlight that you sometimes find on the Australian ones, so I've got to try and fabricate that. That goes on a turret and is stowed in the basket at the back, but obviously I haven't got the basket, so it will be on. It looks cool on anyway. So yeah, onwards and upwards. So here's the story so far, probably the end of this video. Mounted the extractor and took off the side skirts, removed the supports. I used some anti-slip texture with a stipple brush to stipple the parts that I believe are cast. I'm hoping that most of it is, but if it isn't, cut the mudguard here at an angle that I've seen on a photograph. Cut the mudguard off here, rounded it off here. Took all the stuff off here. I need to find a piece of plastic to shape the armour plate that goes on there. Then I've got to try and manufacture two wheels, or two halves of a wheel that will go on there. I'll have to find something to cover these screws because they don't look very good. Under here, when you take off the side skirts, there's a void because the hole doesn't come across at the sides. So I used the side skirts trimmed down to glue to the underside of here. Went from about there to there, the piece I could use, covered that piece, and then I used a piece of plastic just spare knocking about to cover this part here underneath the exhaust. So that should look fine. You shouldn't be able to see that so far. So just put that on as a test just to see how it looked. But yeah, so far so good. Thanks for watching.